Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Um, I decided to make this video based on what happened to Twitch, the entertainer, the DJ Twitch, and my condolences to his family and loved ones. And I pray that the grace of God will keep them in this trying time. But after I read the incident, no, I'm not going to say incident. After I heard of his suicide, because we have to stop pretending and be tiptoeing around stuff. Like even me, I must tiptoe the incident. What is the incident? Why am I afraid to say he committed suicide? Like it's something to be pretend about. No, it's not something to be afraid to say, because we have to come to a place of talking about stuff like this without tiptoeing. Like we're not trying to offend, we're not trying to trivialize, we're not trying to put down. No, we're trying to inform and empower to create change. So yes, when I heard about his suicide, I was having a conversation with someone, and the person said, we're all being empathetic, and the person said, oh yes, they had attempted suicide in their youth. And then I opened up, I said, well, actually I've attempted 3 times. And I think later yesterday I was on Instagram and I saw Tyler Perry talking about it, and he too mentioned that I think he had attempted or so. And so today I decided I would need to make this video. It looks like suicide ideation, which is basically the thought of when life has so much pressure that the thought of self-annihilation becomes an inner conversation that is indulged in. It may not necessarily be done, but the thought comes in and the feeling comes in as a viable escape or a viable resolution to the immediate problem, and we entertain that thought. So that's suicide ideation. And then for some people it goes on, and there's a constant pushing it back. There's a constant pushing it back and pretending it away. We have to begin to talk about the suicide ideation, because I honestly believe, and I could be wrong, I honestly believe that when a suicide attempt is done, it's not the first suicide ideation that showed up that the person just said, okay, let me attempt suicide. No, I strongly believe that the ideation has been there. It comes up and we listen, and it's like, no, and we push it aside, and we listen, and no, we push it aside, and we listen, but then gradually it begins to make sense. We entertain it and until it begins to skewer our views, and it now begins to make sense, and we begin to rationalize it and begin to entertain it and begin to evaluate what method am I going to use, assuming I wanted to do it. Let me use me as an example. The first time I attempted suicide, I was 18 or something, and I remember when that thought came. When I had that thought, the thought came, and it was so alien. I was like, no, that self-annihilation is not something that I will do, because it was just so alien for me to even do something like that. So I immediately rejected that thought. And then it came back. I rejected it, and then it came back. And now suddenly it looked like it was gradually gaining ground. What was initially so alien and so repulsive that I was like, heck no, suddenly it was like, and they started becoming more, and then it got to the point where I was like, I know I won't do it, but assuming I wanted to do it, how would I do it? See, now we're getting closer and closer and closer. Until it got to one point, I was like, yeah, I think I should do it. But no, if I do it, I'm going to offend a lot of people. Oh, so now it was like, assuming I was the only one, it was okay. But because of my family and loved ones, it's not okay. So now I've been converted. And it was converting until I was converted. And next thing I know, I was exploring routes and I heard about somebody attempting and the person did this. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to try that. And I'll make sure mine is foolproof. And I will do this and do that. First time I attempted it, it was, I had a nervous breakdown, had to drop out of school and yada, yada, yada. Second time I attempted, I had a foolproof way. And then it shut my kidney down, shut my liver down. I was in a coma for 5 days and I had a 20% chance of surviving. Luckily, my loved ones had a prayer chain going on. There was prayer going on in my hospital room. And so I woke up out of the coma. And what did I decide? As I looked around me, it was 3-dimensional. And I was like, oh, heck no, I'm going to try this again. And so they took my behind and threw me in a psych ward. And so I was in the psych ward. I came out and guess what? I attempted again, and this time I had an out-of-body experience. I literally saw myself out of my body. I saw my body on the gamma. That's I talked about that in my book, The Covenant, available on Amazon as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. But anyhow, I say this to draw attention to the fact that suicide ideation is something that must be at the once that ideation shows up, as alien as it is, once you stay silent and it's inside, you're giving it room to fester. It's festering within. 1 year, 2 years, it's festering within. And next thing you know, there is a manifestation of indulgence. So my encouragement is, no matter how insane, I don't use the word insane, no matter how unlikely you would ever be to indulge in a suicide attempt, once that ideation is there and the thought comes, yes, reject it, but also find someone to talk to. Why did that thing show up? What circumstances were you going through? What mental situation or psychological situation, emotional situation were you in for that thought to find legitimacy to show up? Address that situation. Not just the thought and push the thought away. Address the situation, because that situation birthed that thought. If that situation is not addressed, guess what? That thought will keep finding avenues to show up. And once a fissure is created, it will find a way to seep out of subconscious, unconscious into your conscious. So that's my encouragement today. Any suicide ideation showing up, find expression, find somebody to address it with, and talk about the situation that gave credence to that ideation showing up. Also, emotional imbalance is not something to be ashamed of. Psychological imbalance is not something to be ashamed of. We all have our crazy moment. We all have our imbalance moment. We all have our where pressure seems so overwhelming. Find a way to talk about the pressure. Find a way to find your trusted, find your tribe. Find your place of solace. Someone you can find solace in to exhale to. Thank you. And I think it's, if you're in America here, it's 988. That's the number to call. If you don't have anybody to talk to, dial 988. And you can talk to somebody. Thank you.